Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and shalom to all of you who are zooming in from the United States, from Poland, from Israel, and from around the world. I'm Alan Ross, Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of the Quad Cities, and I am honored to welcome all of you to this special commemoration of Holocaust remembrance entitled Holocaust Memorial Day Walk in the streets of the former Warsaw Ghetto. Remembrance, reflection, and hope. 1940 to 1943, Germans murdered over 400,000 Jewish men, women, and children in the ghetto, including those who died of starvation, typhus disease. As we solemnly gather today, especially you students who will become our futures, let us not forget the history of the Holocaust, but very importantly, let us also learn the lessons of the Holocaust that are needed today in order to prevent future Holocausts and genocides from happening. Now, it is my honor to introduce Chris Roebling, who moderates the Public Affairs series, the Union League Club of Chicago, and who helped the club partner with the Standard Club last fall to present 2 live Zoom programs in the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. Chris.
Alan, thank you very much. And we want to thank all who have contributed to this program. I'm very pleased to speak on behalf of the Standard Club of Chicago, Alan's organization, the Jewish Federation of the Quad Cities, the American Jewish Committee, whose Zoom channel we are using, and of course, the Union League Club of Chicago, and another score of volunteers and sponsoring organizations whose names you're about to see on the screen. All of us know that when individuals cease to see each other as reflections of our Creator and His love for our creation, then unspeakable horror results. But even as we are meeting today, each of us must appreciate that we are losing on a daily basis the witnesses, the living witnesses to what happened. And so upon us falls the responsibility, the duty to learn the history and to understand it on human terms and social and political and military, so that each one of us, to be hope after remembrance, each one of us can in our lives extend ourselves to the other creatures of our Creator, to the other people on this planet, in a spirit of never again. Very proud now, on behalf of all of the sponsors, to hand off to attorney, learned counsel, noted attorney, Michael Trayson, here in Chicago, who has done so much to bring this program together. Michael?
Thank you, Chris. 600 people are registered for this program that we're watching together almost as a family across many time zones. It's 6 p.m. in Warsaw. It's 7 p.m. in Jerusalem. And as the sun begins to set there, the entire house of Israel across all 24 time zones pauses to remember the destruction of the European Jewish civilization, which is no more. This program fittingly brings us together across all of those time zones. Of the 600 people who've registered, however, none of us should recall ourselves as observers. We are instead participants, for as the Haggadah teaches us, it is our duty to teach this to our children, to remember this for all time. Our focus is more than the Warsaw Ghetto today, but the Warsaw Ghetto we will see live with our interpreters. It was about the size of Chicago's Loop, not very big at all, but it contained up to 400 or even 500,000 people. We want to remember the numbers we're talking about today in the words of attorney Ben Ferentz, who was a prosecutor at Nuremberg. And he said, please don't think in terms of 6 million. Think of a family of 10 and then multiply that family of 10 being slaughtered by 100,000. And then you've only reached 1 million. So if a family is of 10 and you multiply it by 600,000, it makes the picture a little bit more realistic. Our friend Eric Bednarski is a talented filmmaker who created a vision that many of you have watched over the past days. And we're going to take a look at a clip of that right now as we share with Eric his observations through his camera's lens.
Where was the Jewish neighborhood in Warsaw? There were Jewish neighborhoods, and the interaction with non-Jews was a normal daily event. That comes to a crashing halt with the building of the Warsaw Ghetto wall.
The intention was to destroy the capital of what was formerly Poland, because there was no more Poland.
Miasto Die Neue Deutsche, Stadt Warszał, miało być w ostateczności zamieszkane tylko i wyłącznie przez Niemców.
Jak wyszli Niemcy, od razu zaczął się terror w gruncie rzeczy.
Moja pamięć to odrzuciła, bo to było zbyt straszne.
Minęło tyle lat. Wie pan, że ja nie opłakałam mojej rodziny. Ja nie miałam czasu nawet na to.
People calling me and saying, there are spirits in my apartment. I'm in the old ghetto.
Eric Bednarski, what can I say after seeing that film? We know that the ghetto was created in October of 1940, and that it was closed in November of 1940. We know that at that time it had two divisions, the small ghetto and the large ghetto. And we know that beginning in July 22nd, the liquidation of the ghetto began in 1942, and that it ended temporarily in September to be resumed again in January, and then finally in April. Eric, were there any particularly surprising discoveries you made about the Warsaw Ghetto?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Michael, and all the other organizers for having me on this program today and for including my film. It's a great honor. I think what surprised me first was the actual creation of the ghetto. It was an artificial dividing up of a European capital city with a massive displacement of people. Over 100,000 people were moved in, over 100,000 people were moved out. You can imagine the suffering, the misery that was caused, and the city was just turned upside down. So that was something that struck me. Also, the speed and the scale of the killing in 1942, when most of Warsaw's Jews were deported to Treblinka between July and September. Almost 300,000 people, it's estimated, were deported that summer. And we hear of Auschwitz. When people say the word Auschwitz, everyone almost in the world knows of Auschwitz, but Treblinka is another horrific site. And I've heard that up to 900,000 Jews were actually exterminated, murdered in Treblinka. So this was something else I learned. And lastly, after the deportations, after the Warsaw Ghetto uprising of 1943 was crushed by the Nazi occupiers, there was a massive plunder, dismantling, destruction of the ghetto. that took place using slave laborers. And the Nazis actually set up a camp, a labor camp called KL Warsaw, and they used these slave laborers to basically erase any trace of what was once the Warsaw Ghetto. So, I mean, we could talk for hours. This is a huge, painful topic, but those are some things that really struck with me.
Eric, we provided the link to the movie so people could watch it, and we hope they have, and we hope they still will. It's very, very powerful. How did you find the survivors who you feature in your film, and what was it like working with them?
Well, I was very privileged to meet, firstly meet Israel Gutman in Israel. This was on a trip I made early on in the filmmaking process. And then I met him some years later, just before his death in Warsaw. And that's when I did an interview with him. But most of the protagonists of the film are actually from Warsaw. And I was able to connect with an organization called the Children of the Holocaust. And they have offices throughout Poland, but their main office, as far as I know, is in Warsaw. And that's how I met these incredible survivors, was through that organization. So it was very humbling to work with them, to befriend them, to include them, and to learn from them.
In a few minutes, we're going to actually go live to the very streets that you were talking about and that are in your film. Now that we're in this pandemic, it's reminiscent of the typhus epidemics that occurred. And how did the Germans use the excuse of typhus and controlling disease to justify the ghetto?
Well, they used disease in a very sinister and cynical but clever way, because they connected disease with the Jews of Warsaw. So they sort of created an atmosphere of fear and convinced, I think, the non-Jewish population, that was their target, that Jews spread typhus, that Jews were immune carriers of this disease, and for everybody's safety, it was better to put them in a ghetto. So you can imagine that the hatred that was stirred up. I mean, there were certainly prejudices, pre-existing prejudices amongst non-Jewish citizens in Warsaw, but to have this anti-Jewish campaign with films, with loudspeakers, with posters all around the city, it would have done tremendous damage and would have caused tremendous suffering. And it, like I said, it was very cynical. It was very sinister. And today we see hate crimes, we see racism, we see people stirred up by the pandemic. And I think there was perhaps a similar atmosphere in Warsaw around the time of the creation of the ghetto.
I think many of the 600 people who are on this program today have been to Warsaw and who will recognize many of these places that we're talking about. I also know that you and I have chatted about how we personally feel when we are walking on those streets after all the research that's been done, after the familiarization with the diaries that were written by Chaim Kaplan or by Abraham Lewin, and the documents that we've read from the Ringelblum archives. Just for a moment, give us your impression now when you're walking the streets of where once was the ghetto.
Well, something that really was unimaginable has become imaginable after having spent so much time immersed in the subject, having met so many people, having discovered a film. I see that film now in a completely different way. I can see the ghetto in a way. So I would also encourage people to read as much as they can about the Jewish life in Warsaw before the ghetto was created. There's an excellent author, many of you know, Isaac Bashevis Singer, and he's written some incredible short stories about Jewish neighborhoods in Warsaw before the creation of the ghetto, before the destruction of Warsaw. So,
thank you, Eric. You made a very good point there a moment ago. The unimaginable becomes imaginable, and the unspeakable, when we can speak about it, is no longer unspeakable. And we know how these things evolved over time. There was no starting from scratch with a plan for the final solution. It evolved. Now, let us go directly to Warsaw at the Ghetto Monument with Marta Jankowska. Marta?
Hi, welcome to Warsaw.
Hi,
My
Marta.
name is Marta Eichelberger Jankowska. I speak to you on behalf of the Foundation for the Preservation of Jewish Heritage in Poland. And welcome to Warsaw. We aim to protect surviving heritage, Jewish heritage in Poland. Let me take you to the landscape view.
I'll just let the audience know that we're going to go from the Rappaport Monument where you are right now. This is the original monument that was put down in 1946, and that's the Polin Museum behind it. And we're going to be taking a walk. Marta, you'll do most of the talking, but we're going to walk swiftly from here to Miła 18, the bunker, and then to the Umschlagplatz, and it's cold and wet. So Marta, take over from here as quickly as you can proceed.
I will try, and I will stay in conversation with you, Michael. This is the first commemoration of the Ghetto Uprising, 1946. As you can see, it has a round shape and thus commemorates also the fighters who fought and were escaped through the sewers. I just want to translate very quickly what the Polish Jews wrote as they were engraving this monument. For those who fell in an unprecedented and heroic struggle for the dignity and freedom of the Jewish people, for a free Poland, and for the liberation of mankind, Polish Jews. The second monument I'm coming towards is the much more recognized, famous monument designed by Nathan Rappaport and built here in 1948 on the 5th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. This stood then amongst the rubble of what used to be the ghetto and what used to be Warsaw. The monument itself was built out of the labradorite and stone that was ordered by the Nazis for their Arches of Triumph. The architect Leon Suzin and Nathan Rappaport, the sculptor, wanted in particular to use this stone, sort of paradox. I will show you the other side of the monument. The first side that you saw portrays the fighters with Anielewicz at the front. The second shows the people who were deported from this place to Treblinka, people walking towards the deportation site. As we are moving, you will also see the building of the Polin Museum of the history of Polish Jews, which commemorates all the 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years of the Polish Jewish history. At this site, at the very location of the museum, there used to stand a building that housed Judenrat. So it was the last location of the Judenrat of the Warsaw Ghetto. It was also a place where some of the clashes and fights happened during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising.
Now, Marta, as you continue walking, and I want to give you a chance to walk here too. I appreciate the commentary too. We're passing other monuments, and the corner you're looking at right now was at one time the place where stood a post office in the ghetto, through which many communications to the underground went at one point or another. And the building that's, I'm sorry, you're approaching this table. Show this now.
Yes, I am showing the table. Obviously, in the rubble of the ghetto, there were many objects that were covered by the rubble, and we keep finding them. Whenever excavations happen or new buildings are built, these come from the time when the museum was built. And that's around 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, they were found in the ground in this area. So just to let you know.
One remembers the quotation from Job, which we're going to see on the Umschlagplatz in a few minutes. Earth, do not conceal our blood, give no resting place to our cries. And the land you're walking on right now, which looks so nice and clean, underneath it lies the remains of that ghetto. We're
If I
crossing
could just
the
add
street.
one thing, that's where that camp Kale Varsha was too. The work camp was in this spot.
Yes, I think that there was a Gensha prison. There were two prisons, Pawiak, which was mostly but not entirely Poles, and Gensha, which was Jews. Gensha is where Irena Sendler was held before she was freed by the Polish underground. And as we view these street scenes of Warsaw, I'd like to repeat what all of us know, and that is that the Polish nation suffered terribly during this time. 3 million Polish non-Jews were killed, and this city we're looking at was 95% destroyed during the August 1, 1944 Warsaw Uprising, not Ghetto Uprising, but Warsaw Uprising. So as we spend our Yom HaShoah remembering the destruction of the Jewish nation, we also remember the terrible, terrible agony of the Polish nation. Marta's proceeding northward and across the street. Marta, you
I would
want to
like
explain?
to, Michael, I just want to show everybody, I know you can hardly see this, but there's a commemoration to Shmuel Ziegelboim, who was a member of the Polish government in exile. And as he heard of what is happening in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, as he realized that there will be no reaction from the world, from the Allies, he decided to commit suicide and to draw attention to the dying remnants of his people in Poland. We are now approaching the Miła 18 bunker, which is actually not just a monument, but also a grave of the fighters who did not manage to escape, and including Mordechai Anielewicz. It is basically the site of where the bunker was and the rubble covering it with the monument.
And Marta, I believe
this
the height of that earth is at least symbolically to tell us what the height was of the rubble at the end of the uprising.
Yes, and there are also other places in Warsaw where you can find such hills, which are actually the rubble of the buildings from that time.
It was in this bunker and in a number of other bunkers that the Jewish resistance fought from in January 18, 1943, at the first uprising, which is better known by the April 19th Passover uprising.
Yes, and you can see the commemoration here in Polish and Yiddish. This is also a very old monument. Some of these monuments are pretty old, especially the first one, and the rest, the route of martyrdom that we're walking upon is from 1980s. So it was an attempt to commemorate the events in a place where there were no buildings left, except for two buildings that you will see on our walk. There's another stone with the names of the fighters. And so as we are passing, we are walking, there will be stones in the shape of matzevot, of tombstones, Jewish tombstones, with names of people who were significant, important in the ghetto, who fought in the ghetto uprising. They are commemorated here.
Marta, we're going to let you walk swiftly because I know you have quite a distance to go to get to Umschlagplatz, and we do want to see that. As people walk the streets of the former ghetto on the streets today, they can see periodically places where there are hills, and those hills are actually the rubble that remained. There were literally tens of thousands of boxcars that took the rubble away after the war and the cleanup period, but much of it still remained. I remember my first time there, as many of the participants here probably remember, and you look around at these houses, these buildings, and you wonder how it is people can live with this and live on this same ground. And yet time goes on, and our duty is to remember all of this. In fact, it looks so normal today, but our knowledge tells us much more than that. Marta's now going to be crossing the street.
Not yet, but I can see
one
the
more
crossing
block,
of
one
the
more block.
street.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm approaching it. I just want to, perhaps while walking, just let you know that the monument, the large monument, the Rappaport Monument to Ghetto Heroes, was also an extremely symbolic place for Jews after the war who lost their loved ones but had no place, no cemetery to go to. As most of them, we didn't know it was unknown where they were buried. And so this became a symbolic grave, a place where everybody came to commemorate their loved ones. So this is a very, very unique site. And as we're turning right now, Stawki, we are passing the stone commemorating Janusz Korczak and the children, the famous doctor and writer who died with the kids from his orphanage in Treblinka. And we are approaching actually the site of Umschlagplatz, which was somewhere between the buildings, which you can see right here, the place where Jews were gathered, led to for deportations, and gathered and waited on trains to take them to Treblinka.
As people may know, the Umschlagplatz was the end of a rail spur that went across to the Gdansk, Most Gdansk railway station that took the Jews to Treblinka. They built this spur particularly for this purpose. And Marta, talk about the building directly across the street.
The building across the street was a school. Nowadays it's a school, but during that time, it served as a hospital. And people were actually trying fervently to get in once they realized that their trip is not resettlement, but journey to Treblinka to their death. This was the place where they hoped to still manage to hide, to get out of danger, at least temporarily. As the building right opposite, right here, is also commemorated as these are actually two only buildings in the area that survived from the time. This one served as headquarters to the Nazis. So they were overlooking the operation from this building. And nowadays it serves as the psychology department of University of Warsaw, and famous Nobel Prize winner Olga Tokarczuk, the writer, actually writes about it in her books.
As you cross the street, Marta, I'll remind people that this building, as you mentioned, was the last location of Chista Hospital. It had also been a Jewish communal building. And also, when we look at this sign, we can see a typical sign that the Nissenbaum Foundation erected in the end of the Solidarność emergence from communism. But there are also signage, a little bit of signage that's much more universalistic, that is part of the Soviet ideology of the story of what happened. Once democracy came to Poland, the history began to be told. And now we're moving very close to the actual Umschlagplatz, which you're going to show us, as well as the markers for the edge of the ghetto. And then we're going to switch over to see the bridge that connected the two ghettos.
Let me just tell you, and we're approaching also another memorial plaque, which tells about the liberation of 50 Jews who were imprisoned here in 1944 during the Warsaw Uprising of 1944 to work for, to clean the rubble of the ghetto. And they were liberated by the insurgents of the Warsaw Uprising, and most of them joined the Warsaw Uprising. And here you see the sign of the Warsaw Uprising, Poland fighting in 1944. And we are right now.
This is the Umschlagplatz monument.
The Umschlagplatz monument, erected in 1980s.
It's
symbolizing a wagon, right?
Yeah, I'd walk in and look at the names, and then the marker on the side walk of where the wall was, because we have to switch over in a moment.
I just want to show you this. These are the names which were the most popular for the Polish Jews at the time. Yeah. And as the number of Jews who were deported from here was about 300,000, it was impossible to put all their names up.
Marta,
and
stop a moment with your camera because it's blurred when you go. I'd like people to see these names because they cry out to you. We all know people with these names. You know, 90% of the Jews in America today have their roots in what was once Poland. All of this is more than history. It's very personal. And these names.
Yes, and I'm continuing to walk. I'm continuing to walk towards the marking of the ghetto wall that stood around here.
Warsaw has had a great mayor named Hanna Gronkiewicz-Waltz, under whose auspices the city installed markers on the sidewalks and streets where once were the walls of the ghetto. Of course, those walls moved during the ghetto days. They didn't always stay in the same place. But in a moment, we're going to see with Marta a marking in the sidewalk and also a little monument, and then we're going to switch over to the bridge. I'd like to also add one more comment. Marta, we're getting a lot of questions and comments in the chat. Next year, we're going to have a 6-hour production where we can discuss all of these subjects. Unfortunately, we're forced into a time frame here that goes too fast. Marta?
Yes, I am showing you the marker of where the wall used to be. This marker was erected, was put here by the Jewish Historical Institute of Warsaw and the city of Warsaw. And here you can see the map of the ghetto as you will be moving. We are this part of the ghetto. This is the Umschlagplatz area. And you will be moving towards here, I believe, in just a couple of seconds. Yes, Michael?
Yes, and Marta, thank you. Thank Fodge and thank Piotr Puchta. And when people say they're looking for a way to help, Fodge is a great agency to approach, especially with a woman like you standing in the visible rain and cold. Thank you. And let's switch over to our friend Wojtek Sochowica from the Auschwitz-Birkenau Foundation, who's standing at Chłodna and Zalazna streets. Wojtek.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Michael. Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be with you on this day. I am Wojtek Sochowica. I am here on behalf of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Foundation, which is in charge of organizing and securing the preservation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the remains of Auschwitz-Birkenau. But today I am here with you on Chłodna Street. To be exact, I am on Chłodna 20, which used to be the home address of Adam Czerniaków, the chairman of the Judenrat, the Jewish council during the time of occupation.
This is the actual lobby of where Adam Chernyakov lived. And of course, Adam Chernyakov is also well known for the fact that on July 23rd, 1942, he swallowed a cyanide pill rather than implement the German plan to liquidate the ghetto in the Great Action. Wojtek, are you able to hear us and can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now we can. Great. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the building where Adam Cherniakov was living and his family until July 42, as you said. It is an original building from those times, and it was located in the ghetto. However, as I'm leaving the building, which you can see, I am almost immediately crossing the border with the so-called Aryan part of the city. Chłodna Street is almost like a wedge driven into the city and its people. So the street itself during World War II remains excluded from the ghetto because it is a vital communication and transportation east-west route. Now you're looking towards the west. As such, it is extremely important to the German occupiers. But the sidewalks on both sides of this street and the buildings behind them remain ghetto territory. A wall running on both sides along this street is almost 10 feet high, and it's topped with barbed wire and broken glass. It divides the heart of this city and its population into Jews and Poles. The Aryan part, where I'm walking right now, that is the non-Jewish part, is facing terror, it's facing interrogation, imprisonment, or even death on a daily basis. But on the other side of the wall, the situation is, of course, much worse because death is certain. And that is why Chłodna Street is so symbolic and important for Warsaw, because it brutally brings together the fate of its residents, but at the same time, it ruthlessly segregates, you can say, the same people on the base of race, ethnicity, and religion. So right now we are on the site of the largest of the Nazi ghettos during World War II, with a territory of 1.3 square miles and a population of roughly 460,000 people at the peak of its existence. This is in 1941. We just saw the map, and here I am transporting you to this point. On the bottom, we have the small, so-called small ghetto. On top, we have the large ghetto. We are right now here. This is Chłodna Street. This street is Chłodna. That's Żelazna. That was the only passage from the small ghetto to the large ghetto.
Wojtek, show us the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge is right in front of us. So these pillars on the left side and on the right side, they symbolize the footbridge, which was erected.
And that bridge was only there for a short time, Wojtek, right? It basically in 1942, for about 8 months, it was destroyed in August after the Great Action was well underway. Am I right?
Exactly, because the small ghetto, which I am looking on right now, was not needed anymore because people were deported and it was reconnected with the Aryan part of the city, as the Germans would say. And this intersection is extremely important because in the beginning, there was a gate. So we didn't have there was no bridge before that. There was a gate which was connecting both parts of the city, the left with the right, the small ghetto with the large ghetto. But at the same time, it was connecting the western part of the city with the eastern part of the city, which is behind me. And it was overlooked by the SS, who had a station located in this building in front of me. And because the ghetto is overcrowded and Chłodna so important to the city, the gate opens a variety of options for the Nazis to intimidate people while they are waiting for passage. People are beaten up randomly. Germans make them dance, sometimes even for a very long time, just for the sake of intimidation.
Wojtek, one quick comment from you, please, about the building that we were just looking at. It's recognizable in many of the photographs of the bridge. It's the same building, right?
That's true.
There it stands.
This building remains from World War II. It was preserved, and it's actually one of the very few ones which look very similar as they did during World War II.
Thank you, Wojtek, and thank you for standing in this cold rain. Warsaw and Łódź were the biggest of the ghettos. There were many more ghettos, as we all know, and now we're going to go down 2 hours by car south of Warsaw to our friend Kamila Kloszinska, who's in Zduńska Wola. Kamila, do you hear me?
Hello, Michael. Thank you very much for inviting me and Zduńska Wola to your wonderful project. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kamila Kloszinska. I live in Zduńska Wola, and I would like to take you for a very short walk through the former Jewish ghetto area of Zduńska Wola. I would like to start here with this mural on which you can see Jewish family, the Jewish synagogue, which doesn't exist anymore, and Magen David, which symbolize here actually what happened to the Jewish residents of Zduńska Wola during the war. The mural project, was the idea of the mayor, the Zduńska Wola Museum, and local artists. In this way, they wanted to commemorate our Jewish residents. Right now, we are at Sieradzka Street, which used to belong partly to the Jewish ghetto area. The ghetto actually was established here in spring of 1939, and 1940, and was liquidated in August 1942. There were about 10,000 prisoners in the ghetto. Most of them in August 1942 were sent to the Kulmhof death camp, in Polish, Chełmno nad Nerem. Before the war, we had some between 8,000-9,000 Jewish residents living in Zduńska Wola. It was a very diverse Jewish community. We had Hasidim of Ger, Hasidim of Kotsk, Alexander Rebbe. We had Bundist, Zionist, Socialist, Orthodox Jews, and for sure all of them used to meet here in this courtyard, which was a very vibrant life place before the war. Why? Because the synagogue was located exactly in the place of these tall trees you can see right now. So many of them used to come here to pray. The Jewish boys used to study in the religious schools, Heder and Talmud Torah, which were located exactly in this yellow building. On September 3rd of 1939, first bombs were dropped on the town. Many of residents decided to leave Zduńska Wola. There was Landau family among them, and we learn about Landau family from Ringelblum archives, from the memories written down by Genia Landau, 17 years old girl, who with her family moved to Warsaw. First, they stayed at Żelazna Street, then they had to move to Nalewki Street, and finally they were imprisoned in the Warsaw Ghetto. Not all of residents, of course, left Zduńska Wola in 1939. 3 Jewish religious men, good friends of Mr. Landau, decided to stay and pray exactly in this building, in the apartment on the 2nd floor. Unfortunately, they were let outside and shot somewhere here in the small courtyard by German soldiers. Genia Landau and her family has never came back to Zduńska Wola. So
Camila, if I
here
may,
is a message. Yes.
Camila, I wanted to make a couple of comments about you and about Zduńska Wola. First of all, that there are many people in Zduńska Wola who are participating in this program today. And I want the people who are watching to know that Kamila Klaszinska was the recipient 16 years ago of an award that was bestowed upon her. And by the way, over the last 25 years, 300 plus other Polish non-Jewish people who, like her, are engaged in activities to preserve and to teach about the Jewish civilization that was destroyed in Poland by the Germans. We owe a lot to people like Kamila and also many others, and also to people like Wojtek and others who have made this kind of history part of their lives, a living history. And Camila, I'm afraid because I'm getting prompted that because of time constraints, we need to move on. But again, next year we're going to do a 6-hour program.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what this is, and then we'll move on.
Sure. Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Camila. As everybody knows, in Israel now, the sun is setting and the music on the radios goes to somber music for the next 24 hours. Places of entertainment tonight are closed. Everybody's mind is on what happened. It became popular recently to have salons where people gather together and hear stories from survivors who are the remnant of what was destroyed. Let us right now watch a video of the siren, which will go off tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. as all traffic stops, and will be followed by the memorial prayer for the dead by world-renowned Chazan Alberto Mizrahi.
דיין אלמנות ואבי יתומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרוקיו מזהירים את נשמות 6,000,000 היהודים, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנהרגו ושנשחטו, שנשרפו, שנחנקו, ושנקברו חיים בידי המרצחים הגרמנים הנאצים, ואת עוזרי משיירהו העמים יימח שמם. באושוויץ, טרבלינקה, Majdanek, Mauthausen, Bergen-Belsen, Sobibor, ובשאר מחנות החשמדה. בעבור שכולנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. בעל הרחמים תסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. ארץ אל תכסי דמם. אדוני הוא נחלתם. ינוחו בשלום על משכבותם ויקומו לקץ הימים לחיותם.
Although words right now seem superfluous, you can hear in the sound of Cantor Mizrahi's voice the fact that he is a descendant of Greek Jews who were brought late in the process for extermination at Auschwitz. He knows much about this story. What we're hearing in the rendition of the Kiamole Rachamim is focused on the individuals, but besides the Jewish people who were lost, there was an entire civilization eradicated forever. Schools, institutions, mikvaot, batei knesset, gone. Newspapers, gone. We'll never forget them, but we'll also make sure that the next generation will not forget them. And here today, from the heartland of America in Iowa, we have 7th and 8th grade students who've taken a dance version of the art that Cantor Mizrahi portrays in a musical version in tribute to the memory of the ghetto. They're going to present for us 4 mini dances entitled Warsaw Ghetto Stories: Fear, Separation and Guilt, Arena Sendler Rescuing Children, The Ghetto Uprising, and Hope, Light, and the Amazing Prevailing of the Human Spirit. These kids are from the Creative Arts Academy in Davenport, and they've been involved in a Holocaust education project every year. A special thanks is owed to the Quad Cities and its leader, who has done so much for us, Alan Ross.
Our main inspiration for the montage of dances were the many different personal stories and the surrounding events of the Warsaw Ghetto. We focused on 4 mini stories and the variety of emotions that surrounded these journeys during such dark, tragic times.
Fear, separation, and guilt is portrayed as a young girl is torn from her family.
A heroine bravely coming to rescue children from a devastating demise.
A planned and executed uprising in efforts to have control over one's life.
And last, a dance projecting hope, light, and the amazing prevailing human spirit.
We are grateful for the experience to gain valuable insight and knowledge about the Warsaw Ghetto and Irene Sendler and pay homage to the Jewish community. We are the Creative Arts Academy of the Quad Cities, and these are our Warsaw Ghetto stories. I do not consider myself a hero. The true heroes are the mothers and fathers who gave me their children.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen, I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true. I will rescue you. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. Oh, I will rescue you.
I only did what my heart commanded. Who changes one person changes the world.
You've been on this road too long, hearing music but it's not your song. Wanna scream but your voice is gone. Days trapped inside your head. Can't look up cause your world is down. Walking miles staring at the ground. All alone inside the crowd, letting pockets hold your hand. But the sun is always there to shine. The clouds block out the sky. Oh, hold on, just one more day. Hold on, I know you'll find a way. Hold on, you've got stars in your eyes, so let's paint the sky. Hold on, hold on, hold on. You've got stars in your eyes, so let's paint the sky. Hold on, just one more day. Hold on, I know you'll find a way. Hold on, you've got stars in your eyes, so let's paint the sky. So let's paint the sky.
What can one say after that, except to remember the Seder just a few weeks ago when we sang V'hi She'amda, in every generation, they came after us. They managed to destroy the European Jewish civilization, especially in the East. But the Jewish nation and the Jewish nation state lives. And we transition from Warsaw and the Rappaport Monument at the site of our destruction to Jerusalem, at the Rappaport Monument replica at Yad Vashem, to conclude our program, first with the singing of the Israel national anthem, Hatikva, and then Chris Roebling and some final remarks. Thank you, Cantor Rand. And Chris Roebling.
Thanks to everyone who has watched. Thanks to all of our sponsoring organizations, including most especially the Standard Club of Chicago, the American Jewish Committee, the Union League Club of Chicago, and the Jewish Federation of the Quad Cities. Earlier in the program, we were unable to bring you some credits for the dance program that you just saw from the Creative Arts Academy of the Quad Cities. So those credits are going to roll when we finish in just a moment. I just want to say one cannot experience a program like this one today without appreciating that in every age, in every era, in every life, darkness can be dispelled, but our darkness always remains. And so I'd like to go back for a moment to the hope that we promised in our title and reflect on all of our responsibility to be that hope, to be that light, to extend ourselves. In Scripture, we know the Lord said, Moses was not your son, yet you called him your son. And the Lord said to Batya, who saved Moses, you are not my daughter, but I call you my daughter. We are responsible for our actions, and we're responsible for never forgetting the actions of others so that those kind of actions never overtake Jews or anyone ever again. Thank you very much for watching. And all of this will be available on various websites, including the Union League Club of Chicago. So those of you who have registered will have access through an email, and you can share that with your organization. Thank you very much.
Sometimes I lay under the moon and think that I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. 'Cause all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed on the souls of the innocent. Blood drenched, baby, keep on moving though the waters stay raging. In this maze you can lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it face you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. 'Cause all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, ooh, one day, one day, one day. One day this I will change to treat people the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom like one day, one day, one day, one day. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play.